Welcome to The Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where purpose meets performance and leaders are built to shift legacies. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, executive strategist, speaker, and the secret weapon behind leaders who drive transformation at the highest levels. Each episode delivers bold truths, power skills, and real-world strategies to help you lead with precision, show up with presence, and build the kind of influence that outlasts trends. This is the space where high-impact decisions are born, where influence is intentional, and where the bold don't just lead, they change the game. So if you're ready to rise, ready to lead, and ready to create the kind of impact that moves markets, missions, and minds, you're in the right place. Helping you thrive through intentional and effective stewardship. Larry W. Onan is a 1966 graduate of the University of Colorado. He and his wife, Pat, served as a full-time staff of Cru Campus Crusade for Christ for 18 years. During this time, Larry dedicated 13 years to developing and overseeing the accelerated growth of many fund development initiatives. These efforts resulted in more than $150 million raised for evangelism and development programs worldwide. In 1984, Larry joined the Management Development Associates team as Vice President of Stewardship Strategies. He invested 30 years in providing counsel to Christian ministries by advising and helping clients implement stewardship-focused programs that helped raise additional tens of millions of dollars for a variety of ministry purposes. He stepped down from full-time consulting in 2012. He continues to speak in the United States and abroad about lifestyle stewardship and fund development practices. As an active volunteer, Larry serves on numerous community and Christian nonprofit organization boards. He is a recognized specialist in nonprofit board governance, nonprofit management, project management, major gifts strategy design and implementation, and funding campaigns. Larry is the author of Giving Yourself Away and Intentional Living and Giving. Larry co-authors practical assessment tools like the Church Stewardship Inventory, the Organizational Stewardship Inventory, the Personal Stewardship Inventory, and the Success Probability Inventory. He has written over 300 funding proposals for many nonprofit organizations. Welcome, Larry.
Well, it's good to be with you today, Dr. Payne. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Good to be.
I got tired just listening to why you were moving over there a minute. That's a long life.
I know you've done a lot of great things, and I'm excited to talk about it. You and I have had an awesome conversation just about faith and spirituality and what that actually means, and your grandson and wisdom. And so I just enjoyed the conversation, thought it would be great to bring you to the audience. And we're going to have a good time today. You have a lot of wisdom to share, and we're here to soak it all in. So give us what you got.
So with that, I want to be part of what you're doing. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So I want to just jump in here because there's so much that we can capture and talk about. But you've spent 40 years as a coach, a mentor, and a professional consultant with nonprofit organizations, leaders in project management, board governance. We've already talked about that, as well as fund development. But how did you find this to be a lifelong career choice?
Well, I sure wasn't looking for this for a lifetime career. In fact, when I went to the University of Colorado, I was planning on finishing my degree in theater arts and either heading to New York or Hollywood, wherever they would hire me to work in the area of film or, theater and all that kind of stuff. And I was at the University of Colorado my junior year when I was realizing that all the people I knew in theater were acting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nobody was themselves. They were putting on a facade and they were carrying a different costume. And I just started realizing this is a very empty life if this is what people call life. And I was, thinking about where I was going. It was a crisis almost to think about, oh dear, I'm going to maybe make a change here. And about the time I was wrestling with that, I met two engineering students who had no interest in the theater department or the arts. They were into such high-tech stuff, I couldn't even spell the words that they were a part of. But they really expressed a love for Jesus. And I thought engineers that would be on a spiritual journey themselves, what in the world did they do that was different than my growing up experience? And connecting with those guys, I learned that they'd really discovered a personal faith relationship that was not churchy, it was not religious, it was just about God working through them, knowing Jesus personally, understanding the ministry of the Holy Spirit, which I knew nothing about at that time. And that led me to say, I think I'm going to get out of this theater thing and get into something else. And that was a big game changer in itself. It was pretty traumatic because for 5 years of my life, I knew what I was going to do. And I was gravitating toward the directing and execution of shows more than I was the acting. I just like to take something from nothing in a matter of 8 weeks, you perform it. That was attractive to me. I like the acting too, but I was much more into the directing side. So I went and got some counsel, and they said, well, you can get out of college quickly if you will leave the school you're in and go to the School of Education and become a secondary school teacher with a major in English education and theater arts. And I thought, okay, that's a way out of this place. I'm just going to sign up right here on the spot. And I did that. And then I went into full-time ministry with college students in 1966. So I really thought I was going to spend my whole rest of my life working with students. But I had an experience come along where they needed somebody with the skill package that I had, and I took that on, and it took me out of a University of Pennsylvania, one of the Ivy League schools is where I was really spending most of my time. And I got into developing groups and managing groups and working with music groups. And over a course of the next 5 or 6 years, I put groups together from scratch, working with other qualified people. I was a team member, but it was my job to take the idea and turn it into something, and to put all the pieces together and put them on tour. Luckily, I had some really skilled musician people working with me, and they were doing parts, and we were all working together as a team. But I did that, and in 1972, it was kind of a weird experience because I thought I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I enjoyed the arts, I enjoyed the music, I enjoyed everything about it, I enjoyed the management side. And then I found myself out of a job almost abruptly. And so some people it was like being fired. To me, nobody probably even knew I existed in that sense, but I heard that somebody else was taking over what I'd been doing, and I knew I was out. And it took 90 days later of wondering, what in the world am I going to do with my life? That was the game changer period, and the change came over a 90-day period, whereas most of the time you want a game change to get over quickly. And I had to get out of one experience and into the other. And believe it or not, it was related to fund development, and I never even knew that's what I was going to be into at all. I was with the vice president one day, and he took me to his bathroom of all places because his hotel room was a converted bedroom. And he said, I've got something in my bathtub here you need to see, and I wonder if you can help me with it. And I had one other guy with me that I'd met 15 minutes earlier. And he was from a Navy background. He'd spent 6 years in nuclear submarines. We were as different as day and night. He was into the engineering side, and he had a zero tolerance for mistakes because his bed was over the nuclear reactor in the submarines. So it was kind of like, this is a guy that knows what to do in that world, and I can't spell anything he did. He can't talk about what he did. And we walked into that bathroom that day together, and he pulled back the shower curtain, and there were 30 boxes of pledge cards sitting there from an event in Dallas, Texas. They had not been touched since it had been packaged in Dallas, and the pledges, about $2 million worth of commitments, were 90 days old at that time. And he said, I don't know if we can do anything with this, but I don't know what to do. Can you guys take these boxes and see if there's any way to begin to follow up what was these commitments? And that the two of us hauled those boxes away and began to say, what in the world did we get into? And I learned another lesson that day and days following, that I had the freedom to fail. This is a dramatic thing. If I had a job to do and I had no clue, there was no manual, there was no counsel, there was no help. It was two of us sitting down and thinking, what do we do next? And then I realized this is kind of like doing a stage show again. You have a book that's got words in it, and I had 30 boxes of pledge cards, words, commitments. And then I had to figure out how, over a period of weeks, to turn that idea of what those students had committed to into something that was tangible. We actually raised over the $2 million in the following year. But the game changer was I had absolutely no clue what I was doing. I think most people that get into sometimes vocations like I got into, they didn't plan on that. This was not something they really were ready to do. But because of ingenuity, using my strengths, using some creativity off of my past training, we started to figure things out together. And so my whole life has been working in the context of a team. When people say I wrote the book, yes, I wrote books because I'm an author. But if it wasn't for a team of people that actually helped me craft what we were going to be talking about, we would never have even seen the book. Because the guys that I wanted to work with me on, guys and gals both, they took ownership of the vision of what we needed to do. And they started to own it as much as I owned it.
So let me ask you, jump in here. So
Yeah,
did
jump
you,
in.
so you said they took it and they took ownership. They began to own it. So did you cast the vision initially, or how did the vision come
As
to
we got
life?
into it, Dr. Payne, we became pretty successful in the first few years and didn't even know how we were being successful. I was doing classical fundraising. Classical fundraising always relates to an exchange. So if you're turn on your television or something tonight and you see an ad for a children's hospital, you're probably going to be offered a blanket in results of your gift. You know, give us a
Correct.
gift and we're going to send you a blanket, or give us a gift and we're going to send you a t-shirt, or here's a mug or something. There's always an exchange going on. So I was doing that and we were successful in it. Having fundraising is not sinful. It just always requires an exchange. And I was actually stepping into a whole different world when I was asked to figure out the stewardship, lifestyle stewardship. And I had no clue what that was even meaning. This is about 4 years into my life. And I was given a new task and nobody knew what the answer was to the question. And I got a team of guys together and we started to figure out from a biblical point of view what real lifestyle stewardship was. Because the point was, if we did it right, we could bring many people in. And we changed our mindset from trying to find these exchanges. That's what you do when you go give blood at a donor's blood bank, and you get a sugar cube or a cookie at the end of the stay and said, thank you. No, this will help you re-energize your blood system. And we started doing visionary, asking people to give to a cause rather than asking them for the exchange. And that radically changed what we did. So the game changer was, I thought I would be in theater all my life, and I ended up all my life in fund development. It took a while to get there, but it was a radical change. It changed everything my wife and I did together. It changed all the guys that were working on it, because suddenly we realized that we were following a biblical principle that we did not know existed really. And it was made up of a handful of principles. One of them is that God owns it all. You know, we often think about, I own a car and I own a house and I earned this. And, you know, we think about it being mine. Well, King David in the Old Testament said, everything in heaven is yours, O Lord, and this is your world and you own everything. Well, when you start to realize you don't own anything anyway, but you've now been given a steward responsibility to take care of somebody else's stuff. So a steward is one who manages somebody else's affairs. And I'm convinced that every one of us are called to this world. We're created for the purpose of taking care of God's stuff. He gives us skills, he gives us abilities, he gives us things, but he doesn't give it in the sense of losing it. He entrusts it to us. And that entrusting relationship, he says, now that you've you're here and you're going to be my steward, and we are going to be a steward one way or the other. We can't get out of the responsibility. The question really, Dr. Payne, is you want to be a good steward or a bad steward? Because bad stewards get us in trouble. Good stewards thrive and create a world of great energy. So I really started to realize that. I also realized that God said he was a giver, and he illustrates that even by giving his son. This is where Jesus comes into the picture. God so loved the world that he gave. And the principle behind this thing is that I'm doing what God wanted me to do. I'm a giver, he's a giver. Then he wants me to learn to ask him for things. So I've got to learn to ask people for things, and I ask him for things. We call asking him prayer. But
So
we
let me
ask
jump
each
in
other
here.
when you reach out.
So let
And
me
so you
jump
put
in.
these principles together, and it's fun. It's fun. This is a blast.
It is. I
Life
want to
is that
jump
way.
in though and ask a couple of questions. So you've shared a lot with us.
Absolutely.
So let's have a conversation with that. So you mentioned stewardship. We're all our stewards with that. So we have a responsibility, and we have a responsibility, I would say, if you are a good steward of something, to make it better, to multiply it, to grow it. So is that your principle? But also going back to what I originally asked, the question of vision. So when you mentioned that you guys were doing something, it seemed like there was a lack of clarity there in who was doing what or what exactly so you guys were doing originally. So how do you cast vision even with something as big as a fund development campaign? What does casting vision look like?
That's helping other people see where you're going. You know, a business leader's got to be very clear of what he wants to accomplish, or else people won't follow him. And
Right.
so I think it's got to be, the clarity's got to be there. I had 30 boxes. The clarity was 30 boxes at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Then we start to say it's worth $2 million. Can we, in 12 months, collect $2 million from these boxes? And we had no clue who was even mentioned in the boxes. We learned that a lot of teenagers that made commitments were making commitments for their parents. That was another twist that we never knew was there. But we had a vision for where we were going to be. And I was stretched with visionary thinking in my early days, where people would say, you can do it. The idea of the freedom to fail is not a negative thing. It is, if you got the vision for something and you don't quite reach it the first time, you got the freedom to fail and retool and try again. There's
So what
nothing
advice?
wrong with failure if you see it correctly.
And so
So I
how should
think the
people?
vision is big. You've got to have something out there for you to go for it. If you don't go for it, you're going to be, and I was stretched many times way beyond my comfort zones. And probably that's what kept on keeping me thinking, okay, this really can be something that can work. And so, yes, I think you've got to cast that. Even when we started working on what was lifestyle stewardship, we said, if this could work, how could it change what we do in our everyday life?
Mhm.
And maybe we could help lots of people be transformed if we do this right. And it transformed us. It transformed how we did things. I used to call it the fundraising department. We changed the name of our department to the World Involvement Ministry because we were involving people in the world. Yes, we were seeking to get funding in, but that was a tactic to accomplish the bigger vision. So it changed everything we did. I mean, we started realizing that we could ask for individuals for more than $1 million and they would say yes. Or sometimes we would say, how many million do you want to commit? Not just, do you want to get to $1 million? How would you like to be involved? If you've got this capacity, do you want to give 1, 3, 5, $10 million? And people were responding because they were catching the vision for what could happen because of their good stewardship. So it
So what's
applied to
your
fundraising, but it applies to life. Everything about life is tied into God put you here for a purpose and he wants you to fulfill it before he checks you out and takes you someplace else.
That's true. So what advice would you give to someone for casting vision and getting people to get behind whatever it is that they are, I wouldn't say that they are encouraging people or inviting people to participate and join in on?
Well, you know, if it was everyday, just everyday life, you've got to step back and think, not my tactic. You know, the tactic is I got to clean my house. So I know where the broom is and the vacuum cleaner, and I know where the soap is. But if we're going to have a clean house, why are we doing that? So the vision is to get this ready for guests to come. Now, what do I have to do to get ready so this is presentable? So we got to get off of the tactics to why we want to do it. And I think many people are struggling with the tactic today of, I've got to go deliver and work on this plumbing thing, or I've got to go write this book. I'm thinking about when I wrote the book, I wasn't writing a book because I wanted to put words on paper. I was doing that because I had a vision of people around the world that were the Z generation, I'd say 20s to 30s or 40s, because I wrote a book in the 80s that touched on some of the subject. But I said, this has got to help them accomplish what many other people accomplished. So I don't think about it as a book that I wrote so much as I'm on a mission to help people understand about 5 key principles that will transform their life. I think people are, for the most part, stuck because they don't know where they're going. I think everybody has been to a carnival, and in a carnival, you always have the bumper cars. And you get in these things and you go around a big circle and you're just bumping people to death. And the whole goal is to just get through 5 minutes of craziness and knee-jerk reaction. Well, life is not like a bumper car experience. Yet many people are living life like a bumper car. And so they're really responding to the impulsive nature of life. And God says, no, back up. I've got a bigger plan for you. I didn't design you to go around in circles and hit each other. I designed you for a purpose. I want you to carry out the stewardship responsibility. I gave it to Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis. They kind of blew it because they got sidetracked. We all kind of blow it from time to time.
Right.
But the intention was to turn him loose and let him take care, them both taking care of a massive garden. I mean, the garden was enormous. It wasn't, like a backyard little thing we have today. It was, and the vision was, take care of my stuff. And look how much I gave to you to take care of. And so I think many times people think this is all about money. Money is one of 100 things that people can give. And it really centers around my time, my talent, and my treasure. And in the treasure side, you will find money, you will find family, you will find other things that match into your treasure. And then, but God's saying to you all the time, I gave it to you so that you could be successful as a steward. Now maximize that. The New Testament has an illustration. It's called parables. And it said that a guy was taken off for a journey, and he went to 3 of his workers and he gave them gifts.
Right.
And they call them talents. And
right.
One did really well with his talent, and it multiplied 100-fold. One didn't do as well, but he went to work and he got 5 times more. And the third one said, I'm going to the bank and banking this thing. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm not going to waste it, but I'm sure not going to go use it. And the one that did not use it is the one that was reprimanded because he did not take the risks to multiply it. So life has got to be multiplied. I've got to be looking every day of my life. I wake up and I think, what is it today that I'm supposed to be doing that impacts the lives of other people? And I think that way before I get out of bed.
So why do you believe that so many people struggle with doubt, fear, insecurity, unbelief, confusion, all of these things, right? That hold them back and essentially can really keep them from a life of fulfillment?
I think a lot of them is because they've listened to the wrong message. Because even in the Old Testament, the second chapter of the book of Genesis is introducing a counterattack to effective stewardship. This is yours. Take it today. Smell it, taste it, feel it. It is yours. It's not his. He's ripping you off by telling you it belongs to him. Take it for yourself. I think what happens in life, Dr. Payne, is too many people get caught up in being so self-serving and they don't know how to get out of this. And then you look at television, you look at media, you look at everything around us, and it's all about self-serving us. It's about, how do I get happy in the middle of this? Marriages fall apart because I don't feel happy. That's a stupid reason. That's just walking away from a good deal. But we believe that feelings got to be in a part of everything. Sometimes there's not much feeling. When I was doing certain things, I didn't feel good about it all the time, but I had to be disciplined to do it all the time. I don't like working on my finances, but I got to do it at times because that's a part of being a good steward. Because my gifting is not into the financial world. There's somebody else that loves finances. They would hate to go speak and they would hate to do what I do. That's fine. So, we can go that route. And I just think I think every person out there has got a lot to give if they would realize, first of all, that they were created to be there to do something important. Mm-hmm. Now, I think there's a spiritual dynamic to it, Dr. Payne. If a relationship of faith is very important. I'm a big believer, a Christian believer, and I think at the very core is the transformed life. But once you realize that, now you can build that into, okay, if I'm a transformed person because of my faith, now I understand why I'm here, and now I can make the maximized impact of doing it. And that doesn't mean life is going to be easy on everybody.
Correct.
Probably 12 years ago, my wife, in a matter of a few weeks, we realized something was going wrong. We thought she was just tired. And all of a sudden, we realized she had a glioblastoma brain tumor. Now, glioblastoma brain tumors are the death toll. In fact, if you look them up on your computer today and go to Johns Hopkins or Mayo Clinic, you'll find words like, this terminal disease is treated in the following ways. Mm-hmm. If you've got a glioblastoma, you will die from a glioblastoma. Now, you can die in 4 months or you can die in 14 years, but you will die from it because they cannot eradicate it. Okay, that was a game changer in itself. I was looking to go to 50 plus years with my best friend. And all of a sudden, in a matter of 12 hours, I realized that things were going to change very quickly. Now, 18 months later, she actually changed addresses on me. She ended up in eternity. Now, I could have said, okay, what's wrong with me? Everything's falling apart. This is a terrible thing to go through. That doesn't say I didn't have a grieving element to me for missing my best friend. But she got the best deal. She transferred her address to a great place. I'm still here. And so I had to stop and say, as a steward, what am I committed to as long as I'm still breathing air? And so I did 10 I wills and I wrote them down. I believe strongly. Another key thing of a leader is you don't have ideas. You got to put the ideas on paper. If it's not in writing, it really does not exist. And I want to get everything in writing because once you write it, you can actually edit it. You can make changes in it. But if it's just in your head, it's like a bad dream and you can't remember all the details of a bad dream. So when I started to do that, I thought, okay, I can edit from month to month or every year. I can go back to that list. But I chose to not live a life of defeat because I lost my spouse. I chose to live a life of fulfillment because I lost my spouse. She got the better end of the deal, and I actually grew more spiritually from that experience because I chose to see what God was doing rather than falling apart thinking, oh, something's happened and I can't live without her. I'm doing just fine without her. That does not mean I don't miss her. But I'm doing well because I'm not living for her. I'm living to be effective in my stewardship.
I love
that. So life circles around those kind of things. And when people start to realize, in any job you're in, whether it's industry, management, or it's a computer technician, I don't care what it is. Whatever that role is, there's more to you to do than what you thought. And a curve, a change, and then you make reference to game changers. Those are things you didn't expect. But I sent my 2 grandkids off to college. One's at Colorado Christian University and one's at Dallas Theological Seminary this week. 2 different directions. And I told them, I said, you're going to get the education and you're going to get a lot of knowledge, but you haven't acquired wisdom yet. And wisdom's going to come by some surprises that you're not expecting, because you're not going to get wisdom on easy streets. You're going to get wisdom when you have to exercise your faith muscles. So one of them went to Dallas this last week and he's still looking for a job. It scares him to death to be in Dallas and renting an apartment and not have next month's rent. That's the best thing for him because
Tell me why.
he's starting to realize that God is his provider and he's got to figure those things out. Now he's 23 years of age. I think he's going to do just fine at it, but he's going to have more bumps in life than he's going to have smooth travel. I think we need to recognize that all those bumps and those hiccups and those game changers are providing us the opportunity to excel in our stewardship. And if you don't see the game changer as taking you someplace more important than where you've been, then you're going to get stuck in what the game changer was. And I just don't want people to get stuck in that stuff. I want people to thrive. I don't want people to survive.
I would agree with that. I want to go back to what you shared, though. You give so much information. I'm trying to let you speak, but I got to jump in here. You got to let me in.
Jump in. Yeah, I'll shut up. Yeah, go ahead.
So I want to go back to those 10 I will statements. That's powerful. You got to slow down and allow us to just marinate on that, because I think that it speaks to the stewardship of our mind, our thinking, what possibility. It's so much that, that's, I would say, so much that statement just holds, of being able to write down those I will, those commitments, right? I'm going to call them commitments. I will statements. And as you said, you have the right, as I tell people, you have the right to change your mind. You don't have to stay with anything, but just how did you come to that I guess I would say that thinking or that belief after such what could have been a devastating experience? And like you, I've had people to transition, and somebody asked me not too long ago, well, how is this person doing? And I was like, oh, they're great. And they're like, well, what, they are? And I was like, oh yeah, she died a couple of weeks ago. She's transitioned and she's moved on. She's doing better than all of us. But it takes a certain kind of
what happened to me, and this is my own experience in this, Dr. Payne. It was probably 6 months into that process. Now, I was not falling apart. I had friends that told me, I'm for you, Larry, when you collapse.
Okay.
I'm really here for you. That's what they were saying. I never collapsed. Now, I think it's different when you lose somebody very unexpectedly and very quickly. I had 18 months of realizing from the day I knew what she had, and I did not dwell on the fact that she would be dying, but I knew that was the prognosis of what was there. So in some ways, my grieving was over 18 months of helping her get better, because there was a reality that you will not live through this thing. We may defer a death if we call death negative. Death is a transition to what we were made for.
Right.
But it was probably 6 months into that, and I said, okay, I've been doing pretty well here. I was at the point where people stopped calling me and asking me how I was doing. And that is sometimes the place in the journey of losing a spouse or going through something like that, where you start to really realize, okay, now what does this really mean? Because up to that point, everybody is there to care for you and hug you and ask questions and all that. And I thought, I need to recalibrate what I'm going to do next. I'm healthy. And I literally took a piece of paper and I said, what are the 10 wills that I will do? And I just wrote that down. What are the 10 wills? And so when I call it my I wills, when I pull that page off of my computer today, it starts off, I will. Because I'm making it, the book itself that I wrote, Intentional Living and Giving, has got the word intentional there. And intentional living is, I will live it. I will do this. I will make a decision. I can tell a friend, well, let's get together sometime. But I will make a decision when I say, what date shall we get together for lunch? That's a very different story.
Absolutely.
So, there is a dream aspect. Just before we started our conversation here, I had a guy from Florida that worked with me 50 years ago. And he said, boy, I'd love to have you come by if you're ever back in this area. And I said the first time, well, I'm going to be back in January. Hopefully we can get together. And he responded, good deal. And I said, we've got to get together because we've got a history to talk about. Now, when we've got to get together, I've committed myself not to the time, date, and place, but he's going to be on my calendar when I go in January. I wills are that way. I will get up every morning and see what joy is in store for me today.
That's good.
It's on my list. I will spend time with 6 grandkids and impart what I've learned in life to them as they grow up. So I've got this week, I will spending lunch with my 18-year-old grandson that turns the 18 on Thursday. Okay. That is a part of my I wills, because I said I will spend time with every one of my grandkids. Now I've got a 23-year-old and I got a 10-year-old. That's the span. What I do with the 10-year-old is very different than what I do with the 23-year-old.
I hope so.
So I've got to adapt life to do that, but I want to be with every one of those grandkids. 4 of them are boys and 2 of them are girls. So even then it changes the dynamic. But it's on my list that I will spend time with those 6 grandkids. And so I've got to figure out every year, how am I going to effectively do that without them thinking I'm hounding them? So I've got to sit down and do that. When I start to pick out the I wills, the intentional aspect of my life, and don't get more than 10. I think 10 was, I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was the 10 commandments that motivated me for 10. I don't go more than that, but I go through the list. I will stay effectively involved in my church because I need the community more than anything else. It's not that I need to go hear somebody preach, but I need the community of other people that I can encourage and pray for, and they can do that for me. I will be involved in my local church. See, those are the things that what happens is when you start to formulate your 10 I wills, and it could be a comment on your business, a comment on your spouse. I will date my wife. It could be somebody's thing. That means that you got to figure out what to do every week or every month. You're going to have a date. That is going to start changing how you treat her because she's no longer a part of the system. She's somebody important and special. If you don't think about your I wills, you're going to just start fluffing off of life. And I don't want anybody to spend time just existing. So the I wills are something that anybody can do. You can write those down and start working on them and then start editing them and leave them alone for 3 or 4 weeks. And then you can edit them. And then I look at mine once a year, and sometimes I pull them out because they're on my computer and I can see my I wills. It reminds me that I did it. And I'm saying, I'm not too good on number 8 over here. I haven't worked on that one. So it causes me, do I want that still on my list? Or do I just want to work on my commitment? And I think if knowing the I wills is going to help anybody move through life. In other words, if just take the subject of stewardship, and your listeners are thinking, okay, that's another thing to do. But if they say, I will figure out what lifestyle stewardship and how I relate to that, and that's a vision, then yeah, they got to get a little bit of more help to do that because they probably don't know that much about it. Well, I can help them with that. That's why I wrote the book, but I didn't write it so I'd sell them a book. I'm helping other people learn what I learned. That's what that's all about. But for a person to say, well, I really like the book, but I should probably get that sometime. Well, that won't get you very far because then they tell me that probably they're not going to do that. But they say, okay, I will order it today. They verbalized it. Now that's not writing it down. But when I say I will order it, my brain says, okay, I made a commitment to myself. And I think we're no longer wandering through life just tying bumper car routine in the old carnival. We're doing everything with intentionality and purpose. And that's why it's called intentional living and giving. It's living, but part of the issue is giving, because if God's a giver, he expects me to be a giver.
Absolutely.
Now, how do I become effective in doing that? And then the principles that are behind all that start to make it really fun. I call people that step into this world authorized wealth distributors. They can just give anything away at God's request, or God leads them to do it. You're free to do it. And it's not how much you have. I think some people think, okay, I got to have a lot to do it. No, you don't have to have a lot. You just got to be faithful.
Absolutely.
But
I
no,
agree.
that's the essence of it. But that's fun. I've enjoyed this little bit of a conversation with you, Dr. Payne.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm doing more listening than talking, but I'm liking it. I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one lesson from intentional living and giving that has more than any other made a lasting impact on your life, what would that one lesson be?
You are a steward whether you like it or not.
Okay. I'm a
Either
steward
you're going
whether
to be
I
an
like it or not.
effective steward or you're going to be a lousy steward. God didn't put you here by mistake. He gave you a job. He turned over responsibility to you. And that it doesn't haunt me, but I wake up often thinking, I'm carrying out his mission, and my mission is different than Dr. Payne's mission. We're on
Right.
we have two different responsibilities. So I want to help you thrive, but I also want to go thrive too. And I think that, we are a steward. It's a matter of just being a good one or a bad one. Which do you want to be today?
Agreed, agreed. Well, thank you so much for that. I appreciate you helping us to live more intentionally, to be good and faithful stewards in our lives, and giving us something that we can actually feed off of. When we finish this, I will make a list of my 10 commitments today of what I'm committing to myself that I will do, and scheduling time to go back and review it after I let it sit for a moment. So I have a birthday that's coming up. So this is the right time for that, and to go back and see, okay, am I still sticking with this? And being more intentional about the next year of my life. So I really appreciate that. And I know that is something that God is speaking so loudly to me about, because I was at a business meeting maybe 3 weeks ago. And that speaker there shared 10 things as well that we needed to do to have this fascinating, great life. And he kind of shared it. Just started with him going through a transition and writing down those 10 ideas. And he's a powerful business leader and coach. And so I know it's something that I do. So I've just been sketching it down here and there, but I want to get it all in one place now that I feel like God is saying, hey, 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 lady, what are you doing?
Well, what's nice about 10 is they all fit on one page. That's a good
That's
thing.
right. Exactly. I got to narrow and just get the 10. So I want to ask
Yeah.
you, you have this book, and you also have a link that our listeners can go and visit, learn more about you, learn more about the book. You have an amazing story of how you, I'm going to say, fell into this lifestyle of, being able to, I'm going to call it, raise money, so to speak, and be able to build these thriving businesses and help. I'm passionate about faith, but being able to help, I would say, churches be able to thrive and really do what they need to do for kingdom. So I love that. And I have been praying, and I'm a giver by nature, but about, like you said, being this authorized wealth distributor. I always say that I am a distributor for the kingdom. So I'm using my finances to be a blessing
That's good.
in the kingdom beyond what's required of me or what's asked of me. And it's something I get excited about, right? Being able to finance different initiatives, and
That's
being a
fun. Oh,
seed in somebody. It's so much fun. I mean, people don't understand it. But it's life changing. I'm asking you about the link, but I'll share this story. Years ago, I was going to a church, and they sent a flyer to my home. So the church was like right across the street from my house, and they would send flyers. And so I go, and they are, speaking. I ended up loving the church. Went there for many years until I left. But the one thing that stood out for me more so than anything else was sacrificial giving. Getting into the habit of being a sacrificial giver. And that was just life changing for me, because I'd always been a giver. I've always watched my mom help and sacrifice and do all of these things. But that seed was planted, and it never left me. And people, have asked me, well, how have you been able to do this or go here or do whatever? And I'm like, I think it's just the principles. It's just, understanding the principles. And like you said, just understanding what does it mean to be a steward, to be responsible and accountable and faithful. So there's so much you shared there with us today. Um, it's definitely been a life-changing, impactful, transformational message for me, and I'm sure for the audience as well. There's so much. I'm going to encourage our listeners to go check out the book. Go get the book. Not only go get the book, read the book, get you a highlighter and highlight the book and write in the book, what's coming to you. So that's how I actually, read my
You
books.
know,
But go ahead.
well, Dr. Payne, the book itself is in 2 sections.
Okay.
Every chapter has got an application before you can go to the next chapter and read it. But there is a reflective activity for you to do at every chapter. And the 2 sections is one section is the first 9 chapters is really unpacking what lifestyle stewardship is. What does it mean? And it's really 5 principles out of scripture wrapped into one handful. I think of it as a 5-pointed star. And so every one of those points has got something to do with me being effective. The latter part of the book is if I'm going to be an authorized book distributor, how am I going to do it good? How am I going to be effective in doing it? And I go into one chapter on money. I go into one chapter of dissecting deception, because you're going to be deceived all over the place. This is a hot topic for big deception. And how do you say no and make wise decisions, and where you're giving your time, your influence, your money? So the second half is, okay, now that you know what you are, how do you live this life? And it's a guidebook. So think of people that way. Intentional living and giving. You can get it at any of your favorite bookstores, Barnes and Noble or Amazon, wherever people want to buy it. You can go in and get it that way, or you can go to my website itself and get one there. But I'm more interested in people just getting into the content so they really understand who they are. And that's my hope in life, is that our conversation helps somebody out there that's living in confusion to start thriving.
I love that. I know that it will. So I appreciate you for coming on and sharing these life-changing principles with us. I know it's going to totally transform someone's life for the better. And we'll hear some stories from that. So leave us your story, share your stories about, what you're getting from this book. How are you doing life differently from this podcast? I know that if it was impactful for me, it has to be impactful for you as well. Thank you so much, Larry. I appreciate you coming on, and we hope to
it's
talk
been really
again.
fun today. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about my life.
Absolutely.
I've been through a few game changers.
Yes, you did. You did do that. Thank you.
Okay, blessings. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. You don't lead like everyone else, so your resources shouldn't look like everyone else's. I created the Game Changer Leadership Collection for high impact leaders like you, visionaries, change agents, decision makers who lead with intention and influence. This free, high impact resource pulls from my leadership arsenal and delivers immediate, actionable insights you can use right now to elevate your influence, lead with conviction, and drive lasting transformation. It's not just a toolkit, it's your first step toward leading at the level you were born for. Let me show you what's inside. The Leadership Edge Sampler. It's a preview of my 10 daily power skills to sharpen your influence and impact. The Influence Language Mini Guide. Essential phrases to increase your authority and build trust in every room you walk into. The Leadership Blind Spot Snapshot. Because the greatest risk are the ones we don't see. The power of one visual aid. A reminder that even one decision, one tone, or one conversation can shift a team or stall a movement. The Executive Briefing Checklist, a go to tool for high stakes communication that drives clarity and alignment. The 5-minute accountability brief, a no fluff framework to build a culture of ownership fast. And we have the Game Changer Ascension Model Overview, my proprietary leadership growth map to help you scale your influence with intention. These are the very same tools I use with executives, culture shapers, and elite teams, leaders who know what's at stake and aren't here to play small. Because when you're called to shift systems, influence nations, and build legacies, you can't afford to lead on autopilot. This is where your next level begins. Download the Game Changer Leadership Collection today. It's free, it's strategic, and it's built for leaders who are born to shift the game. I'm Dr. Sharalyn Payne, and this is your Leadership Edge. Thank you for joining me on The Game Changer with Dr. Sharalyn, where we don't follow trends, we set them, and we don't just lead teams, we shift legacies. If today's message challenged, stretched, or inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, tag it, lead through it. Because real leaders don't just consume wisdom, they multiply it. Want to go deeper? Subscribe to the Ultra Influential newsletter for exclusive tools, behind-the-scenes strategy, and weekly mindset shifts for the leader ready to move nations, markets, and minds. Visit www.smpistrategies.com or send a note to leadership@smpistrategies.com. And if you're ready for next level coaching or consulting that positions you as the right leader at the right time in the right place, let's talk. This is what we do, and we do it with precision, power, and purpose. Remember, change isn't just something you lead, it's something you become. Stay bold, stay brilliant, stay a game changer.